Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me?
Hey, we're recording the podcast. Shut up.
Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it is
Morning somewhere!
for December 9th, 2024. God, I was so late on that one. My name is Burnie Burns, sitting right over there. She's a number one seed in my heart. It's Ashley Burns. Say hi to Ashley, everybody.
Look, I plant the seeds and I see what grows.
Ashley, this is a bracket heavy morning somewhere because we have our results for Story of the Year. And then this week we'll be starting the nominations for Person of the Year 2024 as awarded by the Morning Somewhere audience. And then you have your Christmas bracket to talk about. And I'll be talking about the college football playoff bracket, which is hot off the press. As you can tell by my voice, I was yelling for the Longhorns to lose to the goddamn Georgia Bulldogs again yesterday or the day before yesterday. But we won't talk about that, Ashley. We'll talk about something more positive.
Yes, I understand the results did not go in your favor.
Yeah, it happens. You know, it was a much better game, I thought, than the first one. But anyway, it felt like Texas did a lot better than the score showed, but it was because Texas kept just like shooting themselves in the foot. Texas had a ton of penalties, missed some field goals. At one point, Texas had given Georgia more yardage in penalties than Georgia had on offense themselves. So that says everything to me.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't sound like almost.
No, Georgia could have waited to show up until Texas got through with their fucking penalty brigade and then started playing at that point in time. They would have been fine. Yeah, but congratulations to them. It's losing twice to the same team in one season is brutal. Brutal, tough, but it happens.
All right, so you're disappointed, but also sort of satisfied?
No, just disappointed. No satisfaction at all.
Fair enough.
I don't know how you're reading satisfaction in my tone at all, but it's not there.
Well, no, I mean, you were saying it was a much better game than the last one. You seemed to be really looking for some positives. Yeah.
I'm definitely trying to find the thinnest ever silver lining on the darkest cloud of what was otherwise a very good season for UT. We'll get to the college brackets in a minute. And to the Christmas movies bracket. But first, why don't we talk about the results for Story of the Year? Our nominees, Ashley, if I recall correctly, were the Israeli pager story, Bitcoin hitting 100K, the Trump assassination attempt. There was the Boeing Chronicles.
3 for 3 so far.
Yeah, we eliminated Year of the Sequels. What were the other nominees for Story of the Year?
The other two were the Willy Wonka experience in Glasgow, just because that was so ridiculous, and the Baltimore Bridge collapse, which feels like one of those ones that because it took place so early in the year, might have fallen off a lot of people's radar. But remember, there were people stranded on a ship that was just stuck under this collapsed bridge for like weeks.
Yeah, and there's this will play into something we're going to talk about a little bit later too, but there was also, remember, the group of people who were working on the bridge that were then just missing and everything. But I think everyone was interested in that story because it showed how quickly the news cycle moves on from even a major event that captured everyone's attention for seemingly like 30 minutes.
Yeah, and everyone was completely focused on that until they kind of just weren't, and it was just gone off everyone's radar. So those were the nominees for this year. As voted by our listeners, the number one story of the year is the Israeli pager attack, which, as you've noted before, seems like it's going to be the subject of future movies because it's just that ridiculous. It's just that crazy. That is, of course, Israel managed to infiltrate the supply chain of these pagers that Hamas used and managed to get them into a bunch of these like Hamas like households and buildings, and then set them all off at the same time, and just caused a ton of chaos. Also, then meant that a lot of groups had to essentially go dark. They had no way to communicate with each other that they could trust now. So it had a lot of really interesting fallout. But it was the thing that was crazy was that they managed to pull off such a convoluted scheme.
I want to point out something really quickly. The Israeli pager attack was not against Hamas. That was against Hezbollah. That was the group that they infiltrated and put the pagers and cell phones in their hands. And it was really weird, too, because they had that initial wave of the attacks, remember, where they blew up the pagers and then they waited a little while and then blew up the cell phones, when they were sure like people were on the phone trying to re-coordinate and everything like that. So it was a wild operation. But this year we've had, you wake up, there's the Baltimore Bridge thing. You wake up, you hear about the Israeli pagers. I don't think anyone saw the Willy Wonka thing coming at all. Just in the last few weeks, it's been, you wake up in like South Korea's under martial law. And then I don't know if you've kept up with it this weekend, Ashley, but suddenly now the Syrian government has been toppled after a 15 years of war in the country, just seemingly like overnight. The leader of Syria had to flee the country to Moscow.
Yeah, I feel like this was almost like a blink and you miss it sort of build up to this. I think on Friday I was hearing like one or two things about Syrian rebels gaining traction and making progress. And then it's just, they've toppled the leadership. The leader has fled to Russia, and that's it then.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, it seemed like it went very, very quickly.
The crazy thing to me about it, too, is, it's obviously crazy across the board, but there was this statement made by the Biden administration where there was a journalist who was last seen alive near the Syrian capital in 2012. And now they're saying, we believe that journalist is alive and we're going to try to get him out. It's like, that was 13 years ago. We're almost in 2025. They were last seen 13 years ago. It's like, now you're going to go get him? Like, after all this time? That's insane to me.
He's just going to be sitting there like, where have you been?
Oh my God. Yeah. He's going to be like, oh, you waited till the rebels came in and now the leadership had to flee. Thank you for rescuing me. He's probably just going to walk out at this point,
Thanks a lot, dudes. Well, look, it's if we've learned anything, it's that sometimes the government is really great at finding people, and sometimes the government, of course, is not great at finding people and have to like put out rewards.
Yes.
Sometimes
they have to
about
up their rewards after they put them out as well.
Yeah, so we're specifically talking about the FBI is offering a $50,000 reward for any information about the gunman who killed the United Healthcare CEO last week and then just poof, disappeared into the ether. No one's been able to find him. There have been a couple photos floating around that may or may not be photos of this person in the area the same day or the day prior. And so there's very little information. So the FBI has put out a reward and then they keep having to up the reward, hoping that someone will turn in information. But I think they have an uphill battle. Did you know they've already had a lookalike contest for the gunman?
I saw that. It wasn't it in Central Park as well? Like they just had a bunch of people show up dressed as the guy.
Look, I'm hoping that they got all their permits sorted out. Do you remember the Timothée Chalamet lookalike contest that got shut down in New York because they didn't have a permit?
Do you want to hear something crazy? You probably missed this entirely. Did you know that Timothée Chalamet absolutely enraptured the college football audience in America?
What? No, I did miss this.
So
what happened?
He was on a program for ESPN called College Gameday, which is like, you probably have seen the program before. It's where all the students are in the background with all their signs and everything. And for some reason, they had Timothée Chalamet on the program where they were breaking down the games that were going to take place that day. And this is like the last weekend of, it's all the championship games essentially. And so he goes up and you would expect like Timothée Chalamet, he would get up there and he would just like say, oh, I really like football. It's a fun sport. He was breaking it down. Like he had done, people have tried to figure out like, how does he know so much about college football? He put like long running forum posters on Reddit to shame. Like this guy has in-depth knowledge. He was making calls. He was analyzing programs. He either did an incredible amount of research or he is a huge college football fan.
Yeah, look, I got to be honest. This has been kind of a crazy year for news. There's been a lot happening. I didn't have Timothée Chalamet becomes like the hero of college football fans on my bingo list.
I'm telling you, Ash, you wake up in the morning, you don't know what you're going to discover. It's like a whole new world every day in 2024 when you wake up. I mean,
sometimes I gotta rely on the things that I know.
Here's what's so crazy to me about the stories of 2024. All these stories we're talking about, you wake up in the morning and it's like the world is totally changed and like you didn't expect this. The most predictable thing that happened on our nominee list was Bitcoin hitting 100K. When cryptocurrency is your standard for predictability, you've got a volatile year.
Yeah, that's a really good point because that's not exactly the most sort of stable, reliable easy but sure growth sort of market.
All right. Do you want to tackle your bracket for Christmas movies first, or should I go into college football?
Well, look, I've got, if you are a member of our Patreon, I've got a full breakdown of the bracket. I would point you to that for the full details. I will say that the bracket surprised me a little bit as I was going through and sort of like filling in. I put a bunch of the movies sort of like head to head, and honestly kind of like surprised myself with the results. You're going to be probably disappointed in this, Bernie, but Red One ended up in the top spot.
Did it really?
It did, but here's how that happened. Is it was very much dependent on like what was facing off against what, and it ended up fine. Like in the end, it was Red One versus Hot Frosty, and I'm afraid the big budget of Hollywood kind of won out. Like the sort of like the glitz and the glamour and like the big, wacky effects over the like really buff but oddly infantilized sexy snowman.
That didn't do it for you?
No, well, look. It did, but it still left me with concerns. Does that make sense?
I think we're all very concerned about Hot Frosty, Ashley. All of us are.
Like not saying that these movies were bad, but the results did surprise me when I actually had to like put them head to head. I wasn't expecting Red One to come out on top. But there you go, a little bit of a spoiler. But if you want the full breakdown, I go through all of the movies and sort of how they stacked up against one another in the bracket as I counted them down. And that is on the Patreon for anyone who cares to check it out.
Well, Ashley, while we are talking about entertainment world and competition, what's the latest update on Wicked's attempt to break the year of the sequel?
Well, I have really good news. I think it's safe. So this year is officially no longer the year of the sequel. It's the year of and adaptations. So Wicked is officially in the number 9 spot, according to Box Office Mojo for its worldwide box office. And it is very, very close to passing Venom: The Last Dance. I think it will do so handily in the next week or so. That'll put it at the number 8 spot. That is taking into account that Moana 2 is already now in the top 10. It's at the number 5 spot. That movie, by the way, is going absolutely gangbusters at the box office. It sailed past Frozen 2. So Frozen 2 sort of released at this same sort of time period. And so there are a lot of articles that are breaking down how Moana 2 is doing versus Frozen 2 at the same time. And let me see here. So Moana 2 did $52 million at the box office for this past weekend, which is its second weekend out.
Wow.
And Frozen 2 did $35 million in that same time period. So Frozen 2, enormous success, absolutely surpassed Frozen in the in the box office in terms of momentum. And Moana 2 is putting that to shame now. So I guess I didn't realize this initially, but I guess Moana 2 was originally going to be a series on Disney Plus, and then they decided to turn it into a theatrical release instead. And boy, I bet they're happy they did.
Well, Sonic 3 comes out December 20th. So Sonic 3 will have 2 weekends in order to best Wicked. So do you think there's any chance it could possibly do that?
No, I think what's going to happen is, so we have Sonic 3 coming out. We have Mufasa coming out. Those are the last 2 big releases of the year, as far as I know.
Both sequels.
And even if both of those end up in the top 10, I'm assuming here that Wicked is going to pass Venom: The Last Dance. Right now, Wicked's at 455 million worldwide, and all it has to pass is 472 million worldwide to take the number 8 spot. In which case, even if both Sonic 3 and Mufasa make it into the top 10 in their first 10 days, right, the last 10 days of the 2024 box office, even if they both make it in the top 10, Wicked will still be safe. So this is the year of and adaptations.
All right. Well, enough about your
saved the box office.
Movie theater Broadway musicals. Do you mind if I talk about college football for a little bit here?
No, go ahead, Timothée Chalamet.
All right, yes.
You know I love you.
This is Timothée Chalamet reporting for duty here. So this is the first time ever that there's going to be a 12-team playoff in the college football in the U.S. And a 12-team college bracket basically looks like 4 teams have a bye for the first week, and then 8 teams are in the first round. So we have Clemson against Texas. That's interesting because that's the first time that has ever happened in the history of college football. Tennessee will be playing
them facing each other in the first bracket?
No, them facing each other, period. This is the first time there's ever been a 12-team playoff. It just expanded. The big news of this seeding that they just did is that Southern Methodist University, SMU, who's going up against Penn State, they took over for essentially Alabama. They were separated by one vote in the AP Top 25, and SMU got the berth for the playoffs, and Alabama is not in the playoffs, which is a very big deal. But SMU will be facing off against Penn State. Tennessee will be facing off against Ohio State. Indiana will face Notre Dame. And then if they move on, the teams with byes are Arizona State, Oregon, Boise State, and Georgia. So Texas's path to the national championship game, they have to beat Clemson. Then they have to beat Arizona State. Then they have to beat an undefeated Oregon, I'm assuming, if Oregon advances. And then they will face probably either Georgia or, I'm going to call it right now, Notre Dame. They have to win those 4 games in order to win the national championship. It's almost like another season taking place. It's crazy.
That does seem like a lot of games. Are there any good rivalries that seem to be lining up?
I would say Ohio State and Tennessee is probably the closest thing to that. Notre Dame and Indiana are really close to each other, geographically, but apparently they haven't played each other in the last 33 years. So we're seeing some matchups that haven't been around for a long time. The really notable thing here is that Oregon finished the season undefeated. They'll have to face the winner of Tennessee or Ohio State, and then what I'm hoping will be Texas. And then that's their path to the national championship. And in the lower bracket, Georgia or Notre Dame, I think, is who I would say is going to make it through to the top spot.
All right. So, Mr. Chalamet, how do you think things are looking for Texas?
Listen, if Texas goes up against Georgia for the 3rd time this season for the national champion, that would be, personally, for me, a nightmare. I don't think I'd be able to watch that game. I'd be so concerned that we'd lose to the same team 3 times in a row. But I'm going to call it right now. I'm going to, a little bit of an outside dark horse, even though they were very highly ranked. I'm going to say that Notre Dame comes through all of this, the 11-1 Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and they face Texas in the final game for the national championship of this year. So that's my call right now.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see if that comes to fruition. Now, this week is starting something new for us. We're continuing our sort of march to the end of the year and to the first anniversary of our podcast by marking the sort of biggest events of the year. This last week we did biggest event, and this week we're nominating, right? We're nominating what person of the year, like notable people. Can I make 2 initial nominations to kick things off?
Please do.
All right. My first nomination is the Hawktua girl who is speed running the influencer playbook this year.
I said the exact same thing on the podcast with Scott. She's just like speed running a career at this point.
Yeah. She's just like, she's going down the list and she's getting all of it done as quickly as possible. So I'm going to nominate Hawktua girl. I'm also going to nominate Butch and Sunny, as I know it's 2 people, but they're a team. They're a one person as far as this nomination goes. Butch and Sunny, the not stranded astronauts. We can officially call them stranded now because the Starliner did come home without them. So the officially stranded astronauts that are on the space station until February and have to catch a ride home with SpaceX.
And we'll leave it up. We'll put space for people to nominate in various places. Actually, probably where would be the best place to do that.
So we will have a story up on Instagram. We will also have, there will be a thread on Reddit for this episode. Please leave your nominations there, and we'll just take in as many as we can and put together a final list for voting.
Can we nominate, since you're doing Butch and Sunny, can I do both Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce together?
Are you nominating them, or are you nominating one of their 2 Christmas romance knockoff movies?
I am nominating them as a couple, the Swifties or whatever they're called. Is there a name for them?
Do they have a stupid couple name?
They must, right? At this point. Tavis?
Tavis.
I'm going to call them Tavis. That's their name, Tavis.
Okay, all right, we're nominating Tavis.
And then in addition to that, we're not going to probably nominate political people because that's just like basically reigniting the election, and I definitely don't want to do that. I'm going to put Timothée Chalamet in there as well, just because he had such a crazy appearance for College Gameday, but then he also had a tremendous year this year,
Yeah, he had a lookalike contest. He had Dune 2. It's all coming up Chalamet.
I would nominate Chaperone, but I'm worried that would upset her. You know, I could be concerned.
You might get blasted on social media. So
But
watch out for that.
Chaperone is another one I would definitely stick in there somewhere for sure. She's been
she has had a banger year for sure.
She really has, man.
Also, and if we're
tip of the
nominating
spear.
pop stars with banger years, then we should probably nominate Espresso Girl Sabrina Carpenter as well. So, well, you look.
Fair enough.
I know. I know. So look, we'll have our list, our ideas, but we want to hear who you think has been a notable person this year who should be in the running for Morning Somewhere's Person of the Year. So please make those nominations on Instagram, on Reddit. Go ahead and, I don't know, hit us on Blue Sky, whatever your jam is. And we'll just try to, really open our third eye and take all of those in and really just, give them the proper energy. I'd also like to say a big thank you to the people of today. John Cordes, congratulations on spinning up your own podcast, buddy. What the Shell? Well done. Congratulations to you. Making a podcast is never an easy thing, so congrats. And also a big thank you to Javapoc. You are both the sponsors for this episode of Morning Somewhere, so thank you both so much. If you would like to potentially be a future sponsor as well, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/morningsomewhere.
And I would like to thank Caleb Daigle for today's Morning Somewhere shout. I just want to point out, Ashley, the voting for Person of the Year in our inaugural run, it will be very important because this person will be connected forever to the people who win the subsequent Person of the Year. ...
Yeah.
So you are now voting for the Adolf Hitler to Taylor Swift connection. You are currently voting for that. So take your obligation very seriously, everybody.
I don't know if we count because that was a very specific ... for time as Person of the Year, right?
Right. At some point, we'll have the first person who set foot on Mars ... Hawk to a girl. All right, well, that does it for us today, December 9th, 2024. I will be back to talk to you tomorrow with a new guest. I hope you will be here as well.
Bye, everybody.